it's working. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Here and here. Yeah, I have, you have been in my field so much, it's ridiculous.
Oh,
Yeah.
tell me more.
I will. So it started with, because you know we had the Soulogy Fest in Sedona,
Yeah.
and I went to Sedona. We're live, but we'll wait for everybody to come in. But anyway, I went to Sedona and I arrived on the 13th, the 12th, and so I had asked Alan Steinfeld and the Hertogs if they wanted to. So anyway, Alan and I couldn't hook up. And so I said, I'm going to be in Sedona, so why don't I just come over? Because I was already en route. And so I went over to the Hertogs and I walked in the door and Alan was sitting on the couch and it was just immediate soul recognition. It was like we'd seen each other a million times before. And then, of course, it was all great. But anyway, he gave me a copy of his new book. So I spent the night in the bus about 3 or 4 nights, and so I would read it at night, and I really enjoyed your chapter, and also the references to Marie, because I love Marie. Both of y'all are just so amazing. And then I get back to Arkansas, and that was all. I mean, Sedona was just crazy. I mean, I got in a good way repelled out of there. I had and 3 animal encounters. I had one with an owl, believe it or not, on the night of the eclipse. I'm laying in bed and I hear about 2 o'clock in the morning, you need to go out on the land. And I'm like, what? I don't want to go out on the land. Why do I got to go on the land? So I argue for like 45 minutes and they're like, no, you got to go. I wasn't even conscious it was the eclipse. So I went across the street, I went onto the land, and I had this merging. I had 2 mergings with the moon, which was pretty amazing. Then I thought, okay, can I go now? And they're like, so this bird came flying, and now it's probably like 3:30 in the morning. This bird comes flying by me and runs or flies into this opening. And so I said, okay, because I heard it say, come on. So I went around the corner, and I was about 6 feet, 7 feet from this owl. And we merged, and I did a bunch of sacred songs, and he was telling me that he was a galactic. He was appearing to me, but he was a galactic being. And then we had this information. There was a lot of stuff that went on. It would take me a long time to describe it. So that happened. And then I'm about 3 nights before I left, I'm sitting on the balcony. I'm on the 2nd floor in Oak Creek. And I hear this noise, and it sounds like heavy rain, but it's like in one place, like this, and it's dark. It's very dark. I can only see right below me. And I see this figure, and I thought, oh my God, it's a dog. And then I thought, but I'm still hearing the noise. And the next thing you know, 12 Javelina hogs, wild hogs, are in the condo complex. And I looked at him and I said, okay, do you have a message? And they're like, yes, we have a message. So they gave me the message, which was really cool because it was strength, wealth, and abundance. And so, and then the last night I'm there, and I don't know I'm leaving the next day. I'm scheduled to be there another 3 or 4 days. And I knew I had to go out on the land. Like I could feel something happening. So I went out on the land, and I was walking through the streets of Village of Oak Creek, which is a small little village suburb of Sedona, about 8 miles out of Sedona. And this coyote walks right up. And the coyotes are big because they're at least for me, they're tied to Anubis. And I don't really attach to anything, but Anubis escorted me my first trip to Sedona, first day, last day, all in between, and several times since I've been there. And he was big this time. So every time something would happen, the coyotes would start yelping. So I knew something was going to happen. And of course, I ended up having my experience. I have a horrible night. I had some people staying in the condo like, boy, you were fighting last night in your sleep or something. And I ended up sitting with 3 internal spirits, and we did a bunch of detachment and lessons learned. I threw up the next morning. I'm crying like a baby in the condo. I'm just purging. And then I just knew I got to get out of here. So I loaded everything in the bus. I said goodbye to everybody. I left at 8 o'clock at night, and about 20 miles outside of Sedona, I just felt this thing come from my root, and it just came right up and it just exploded. And I was talking to Morgan on the phone. I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm on a spaceship. I mean, I was lit. And then Sedona was telling me, good job. We've now taken all this stuff from you that you don't need anymore. So it was pretty amazing. But anyway, I get back to the house. Now I'm trying to recuperate from this incredible experience, which was absolutely incredible. We had one point where when the energy hit the highest on Sunday, I handed a beautiful sister of ours, Pamela Johnson, came up to the stage, and I knew, because I'm like with you. I mean, I just knew. I said, you want the mic? And she said, no, I don't, but they're telling me I have to. So she got up for about 5 minutes and starts, and it was just the feminine anchoring. I mean, it was a powerful 5-minute speech. So I handed the phone. Alan was up next, and I handed the mic. I introduced Alan, and I knew something was going on. So I hand him the mic. I run out of the tent, and about 45 seconds later, and you could just feel it, all of a sudden I see 6 Black Hawk helicopters come from around the mountain in perfect formation, flying right toward the tent. And I thought, oh my God, this is real. We just exploded something. And I started howling like a wolf, and then told everybody there's 6 Black Hawk helicopters coming over. So I got back, and I'm sitting here just trying to process watching, Netflix and Prime Video, and I'm watching this. I don't even know what it was. It was a program, a metaphysical program on Prime Video, and they're showing all these people. And then you came on. You were on the show. It was a documentary or something. I don't know which one it was. And then there was another one. You were on a couple of shows, and I told Morgan, can we get Mary? Yeah, we got to talk to Mary. But yeah, I was really, and I got to tell you this, I'm not just blowing smoke. Everything I've seen you do, because I've been honored to have you on the show and get to know you. But everything I saw, the words I read, when I saw you on the other programs, you're just killing it. You're just like so, you just carry a confidence and the conviction that is very, it's very comforting to me.
Oh.
So thank you for everything you do. It's good to see you. You look fantastic.
Well, so you visited the portals at Sedona. They visited you.
Yeah. Well, they always do when I go. The last 2 times I've been there, it's been pretty mild. But this time I knew I was about to leave, and I heard, he came in. And I don't ever carry anything with me. I just don't, but I thought I got to take them. So I took them. And then I heard, take your 12 dragons. I thought, oh, well, something's going down. So the first night I drove about 5 hours, because I didn't leave till like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And I stopped at this RV park in the middle of it's basically a pasture in Oklahoma. And as soon as I opened the bus door, all the coyotes started going off. To the point where it scared me, I shut the bus door. But it was just that Anubis energy. But yeah, there was a lot of there was a point, Franco Di Nicola? You heard of him?
No.
Well, he's like you, but he's a male.
Yeah.
So he's been doing this 36 years. And anyway, we're very good friends. He comes on about twice a month. God, I forgot why I even brought that up. Oh, so in the first day on Friday, he had a piece, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. I'm sitting on the side of the stage, and he starts talking, and I look down at because it's that red dirt. We had carpet in there, but there was some spots where I was sitting there, and I look down at I just happened to look at the ground, and I see this reptilian looking at me. And I said, what are you doing here? And then right when I did that, and I'm talking to myself, I heard Franco say, God, Todd, you have a lot of friends here. And he was talking about our galactic brother and sister souls. Now I'm looking around on the floor and I see all different types of species faces all over the floor. So it was a very powerful elemental galactic. The land we had the event on, the couple that owns it have been working with the land and created this beautiful space. It's got a teepee and a sweat lodge, and it's got a pond. And I mean, they really, really worked with the land there. So, with everything was just aligned. And it was just 3 days of a slice of heaven. It was amazing. It was really amazing. I'm looking forward to doing it again and again in Australia.
So you had the clearing in Sedona and then the realignment following that.
Yeah, the integration. Yeah. So Morgan was telling me, Morgan doesn't push me, she'll just suggest something. She goes, I really think you need to be back home when the eclipse hits, which was on the 9th or the 10th. I can't remember. And then this lady out of the blue sends me one, says, I don't know you, but you and Morgan are doing some big stuff, Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere. And it's very important you get back to Arkansas by the time the eclipse hits. And so I was just like, I'm not even thinking about it. And then when I had the final indoctrination the night before I left, and then that morning, I was like, I'm going home. So, but when I got back, like a lot of people right now, or at least in June, it was just integration. Like, I mean, I'm just laying on I told Morgan, if I've laid on the couch 100 hours, 25 of the hours I've actually watched something, 25 of the hours I've just flipped the channel. I'm just flipping. And the other 50%, I'm just laying on the couch staring at the ceiling. Yeah. It's just integration, that's all I can say. Yeah. I didn't sleep last night. So it's 7:15 here in the evening. I haven't been to sleep since the night before. And I'm in the last 2 weeks, I'm up until 6 a.m, give or take an hour, sleep about an hour and a half to 2 hours. I get up, I think it's 8 hours. I feel great. And then I'm like, oh my God, it's only, whatever time. And then I'll go back to sleep. But I think I've had one stretch of about 6 hours. Most of them are anywhere from an hour and a half to maybe 2.5 hours. So I don't know what that is, but I feel good.
Well, have you thought about the fact that this was all part of an upgrade?
Absolutely. Because the third eye, I mean, I look great today compared to what I've looked like. I mean, I've had red splotches all over my face. I'm drinking a lot of water, a lot of coconut water. I'm juicing every day. I'm eating about one meal a day, in addition. And there's just a lot of stuff falling away, from habits to environments to, belief systems. And yeah, I'm absolutely aware that it's a strong integration period and preparation period, but not like preparation purging, more like foundational. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, and a debrief from what I'm sensing as well.
Meaning debrief, like understanding.
Yeah, when you take the old you that needed an upgrade, what that is also passing the data to the well, I'll call them the galactic community that you work with,
right?
If you like, so that everything you've understood from that more limited part of you has been, if you like, conveyed to this group. And then they said, right, now we've got that information. This helps us to understand this frequency. Now let's go to the next frequency. So my sense is that because what you were doing, from how I'm sensing it, is you're giving them an understanding of the frequency of that particular awareness that you had as a human.
Right.
Okay. And you're saying, this is how it is when I experience it with this frequency. And they're saying, right, we've got that now. We understand that. Now we're going to take you to that next level of frequency so we can then understand how you experience your realities through this frequency.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've moved to another understanding level of the hologram, the matrix.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm getting chills. Yeah. And so the second night after the festival, Franco and his partner Kimberly stayed in the condo because I had an extra bedroom. They were going to stay for 4 nights. I left after the second night they were there. But anyway, we ended up having a private conversation in the living area on the first night he was there for about an hour and a half. And I got to ask him a lot of questions that I can't ask him on screen, right? And he was able to talk to me about things. Franco's he has full recall from the womb, from his twin who transitioned before childbirth. He has full recall of a number of planetary incarnations. Anyway, he's under the radar. He's been doing this a long, long, long time. He'd never really been a big promoter of himself, but anyway, I ended up because of some of the stuff that he was telling me, without going into the story. I got up the next day. I went to the store. I walked across the street to the store. I'm walking back and I started getting downloaded, and they were showing me something that's related to what you're talking about. And I want to ask you about it. So what was happening was they were showing me, and they were using him as an example, but it could be anybody. They said that what had happened was that we're transmitters, and being that we're quantum creators, what had been happening, as I can understand it, up to that point, was that because of our shadow and the fact that we were a little bit askew, as a whole, that people would take that transmission in, and of course, because they're shadowed enough, it would go back out and it would be a little bit tainted. Like, for instance, it might be something like, oh, who does he think he is, or or whatever the case is. But they were showing me how that we had reached a point where 2 things were happening. We had turned the corner, and that there'd been enough elevation or expansion that now the observers were taking it in. They were more pure, and they were putting it out in what I would just describe as, say, unconditional love or support for the transmitter. Now, the transmitter is also out of alignment, as we all are that are walking the earth. And he receives this because he's able to receive it now, because they've reached a level of self-worthiness and self-love, that it creates this immediate alignment, this immediate healing energy. And then it just starts to go back and forth like an infinity sign. So I thought that was really interesting. But the most interesting part to me was they were telling me that you have now reached the point, and speaking not just of me, but that you guys have now reached a point where we're actually pulling real-time new code from you, based on you taking what you had coming in, plus your experience, and now being a conscious creator, in bringing alignment through the misalignments that we have that have been within us, right? So I thought that was really interesting, because they were explaining to me that we were giving you code, you were taking it in and going on and going on, and now you're starting to actualize things. So we're actually pulling the freshest code in the universe from this huge polarity in this duality, and it's like a universal, it's like the latest and greatest universal code. So I thought that was pretty exciting. How was your June?
Yeah. My sense with that, Todd, is simply that every time we get the upgrade, we're becoming more and more in alignment with our highest self and our highest frequencies. So as you were saying, each time now, because we're coming from a more pure essence, we can then convey the information which is in the words, but it's in the coding, it's in the energy of the emotion. It's a compressed file of codes that are coming through now. And when people hear it, they immediately activate parts of their own DNA.
Yeah, exactly.
Because of so that's how I understand it.
No, exactly. And there's been other things happen, and I've talked about it on the show, so I don't want to go and be redundant, but I just want to fill you in. Like, so Morgan went to Australia. We hadn't talked since then, I don't think. And the second night she's there, she's in quarantine in Sydney. I go to bed that night. Of course, we're 16 hours apart. And we've been through a lot because we got the download. You've got to separate. We've got work to do. It took 2.5 weeks to get used to that. And then we just said, let's do it. Boom. So she's in quarantine second night. I go to bed and I said, I want to make love to her, but I didn't go into anything. I went into sleep, and then I started to have like lucid dream that would fall in line with that. Well, she's laying on the bed in quarantine in the hotel room, and all of a sudden she starts to feel it, but it's a physical experience, a full physical experience. And we compared notes the next day, and then it happened again about a month later. And it was a night where I went to bed and I just said, I just want to just reach over and just hold her and caress her, whatever. And the same thing happened. Now, there's no correlation from the human standpoint. Like, it didn't happen in the perfect sequential, fashion like it would on a linear timeline, but it was all there. So I see all these things happening. And one last example too is about 10 days ago, I'm doing a show with a woman that helped us. She volunteered at the Soulogy Fest. She's from Sedona. And so I meet her in the room, in the studio, and her voice sounds like Alvin and the Chipmunks on Fast Forward. Yeah. Right. But I realized right away that it sounded galactic. So I said, what's wrong? What's going on here? And before I could say, why don't you go out and come back in? I heard, just push the live button. So I pushed the live button, and she went out and came back in, and still nothing changed. Now this was, it took us 29 minutes just to get on, and there was all this weird stuff happening. Anyway, long story short, we have a 30-minute show. She's, by the human definition, you can't understand a word she's saying. Sometimes it's coming out when her mouth's moving, and sometimes it's coming out when it's not moving. And everybody was picking up on it. The audience went up. The replays have been through the roof. For someone that's not known, like, it'd be different if it was Mary Rodwell, because there's going to be a few thousand people come check it out. But this was someone, and we do a lot of people like this, and they might be 800, 700 views, something like that. This one just kept going and going and going. But what was happening was and I was being told, just tell them what you're getting. And I said, look, this is a physical representation of what we're doing in the energetic field. So it may look like a tech flaw, but it's not. And the more we engage and fall, and feel into this type of occurrence, the more it will happen. So that was pretty interesting. But these things are happening. I don't know, how's your last month been? Last couple of months? Well,
I will tell you that there was one particular lady who we tried to have a conversation with in Asia. I won't mention the country. And as soon as we started talking, there was all this background interference the whole time. We tried reconnecting, disconnecting, reconnecting, and she felt literally there was a presence there. It was plainly either trying to communicate or stop us communicating. We weren't really sure what it was. And this young lady also had the same happen with someone else in Australia. It's like whoever is with her either wants to prevent any kind of conversation or is trying to communicate on another level. So maybe we're going to have to learn to understand whether or not it is in fact tech, or whether or not there's a frequency coming in during those particular instances, which may be what's going on is another part of the activation. They're using the tech as some form of activation.
I think so. And somebody just made a comment. I saw it on the other one that said at one point she was speaking ancient language. It sounded very familiar to me, but what was happening to me in that case was I could whatever. I mean, I could sense, feel, see, hear her heart open, and my heart opened, and I guess everybody's was opening, and it just went from there. It was amazing. And so, yeah, I get what you're saying. I think that, we're approaching 3,000 shows, and I started to notice it about 2 years ago. And at first you're thinking, well, this is just a tech deal. And then it would happen. And then I started to notice a pattern. Anytime we had issues, then we would have this great show. It was almost like an attention getter. David Icke was probably the best example. If you look at the first part of that show, we start just like this. And then all of a sudden he splits into 2, and then he splits into 3. And the same thing, the voice was funny, and he was even going, I've never had anything like this happen. He's done a lot more shows than I have. But I noticed that. And then also when I got back from Sedona, it happened a lot. Like it happened like almost every other show. Something would be going on. So there's got to be something to that. And it could either be our frequencies, it's disrupting, or it's working with us. I don't know, but I'm just excited about everything that's happening. I'm absolutely just so excited because, I've experienced some level of physical teleportation. I've seen like the thing with the show, the synchronicities, even like you being in my field. Like the first time I'm going, okay, second time, okay, wait a minute. And then it just happens again and happens again. And somebody sends me a note yesterday. I saw Mary on this show. She did this and that. I think it was the one with Marina Jacoby. And so there's that part of it. It's just getting really thick now to me.
I think what we are seeing as the acceleration of the frequency on this planet is we're going to see more and more of this manifestation. I think it is all part of this shift in terms of what's happening right now as people are moving into that other level of higher awareness. And what we call the paranormal, I don't call it paranormal, I call it normal. Right. But what is happening is it's becoming the new norm, which is, I shouldn't use that word either, given how it's connotated, as the connotations of that. But the new awareness, the new higher awareness of this of humanity that is shifting. And the one thing that I've noticed is more and more of those contacting me want to understand this new awareness that they have. Really? How do they manage it? How do they work with it? Because we've not had the education, have we? Unless we're an indigenous, we come from an indigenous, people. We don't have the understanding that we need to manage it in a integrated, balanced way. To us, that's been the biggest issue for many people, is they've got their 3D here, they're multidimensional here, and I'm saying, but they have to be together to work in harmony, not it's this or it's this. And it's about grounding our 3D experience with our multidimensional, so it all happens in alignment. And they're saying that's exactly what they did with you. That this was okay. I'll just give it to you how I'm understanding it, is that you've been given extra no, it's not even awareness. It's been the frequency that you are now operating on is one that has the word they're saying is it's like you've plugged into a new a frequency of clarity, of harmony, of balance, of integrity, that means that the work that you're doing now has gone to another level, that you are, as you are operating with all these different individuals, you're also sharing that frequency. You're also passing on that frequency, that code, to those that you're working with. So not only are you embodying it, which is part of it, but you are actually, what's the word that I want? You're on a new bandwidth.
That's what I was thinking when you said that, bandwidth. Yeah.
Yeah. Which means you're actually reaching more people.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. That's interesting too, because when I left to go there, I've been trying to expand this network for 2 years. And I keep being told it's not time. Now, when I'm leaving, I heard this festival will be the footprint for the network's expansion. So you need to make sure that you maintain the integrity in all aspects to the best of your abilities. Now, there's a group of people helping me do this, but I understood that, and we did a very great job with it. It was almost like perfection. It was almost like effortless perfection, because there was such a representation of different frequencies. If you can imagine, Alan and the Hertox over here, and the first night, this 3 kids walked up and they were a band and said, "Hey, can we play?" And it was magic, and everything in between. I mean, there's just so many examples, but even down to the financial part, I was told this is, it needs to be shared. Now, we didn't think we were going to do anything. We were hoping, that we would break even. And at the very end, we got a surge of online tickets, and that was great. But we were able to compensate everybody, including the volunteers. Now, I get back and I'm thinking, well, I'm pretty much in the same boat personally as when I left, but we accomplished it. And something inside told me, and again, I think this is a reflection of everybody. It's not just about me or Soulogy. It's just one example. And I understood, because then I came back and, and the integration starts and you start to be really human, and you're like, what about this? And what about that? And I started to go into these old programs, and now stop, because something's happened. You just don't understand it yet. And I think you hit the nail on the head. So it isn't just me or Soulogy. It's this type of frequency is got a bigger bandwidth, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're now going to be reaching, and that's the thing, because with a lot of the wonderful speakers and individuals, many of them are only reaching a certain frequency with their information. Whereas what I have always understood is that we can isolate that particular frequency from others understanding the information or getting the message. Whereas now it's finding the frequency that reaches a far broader spectrum of human awareness. We need to reach more of that spectrum and talk on that level. And oh gosh, I'm going to put my foot in it here, I think. And this is going back to the Christian understanding, where you had that wonderful master teacher, Jesus, where he was actually saying that about how when you come out with this truth, it reaches all tongues. It doesn't matter what you speak, everyone will get it. It doesn't matter what language or whatever, everyone will get it. In it's like that. It's like the frequency is going to reach. Oh, gee, I'm getting hit here. It's like it's going to go far further in this bandwidth than you ever understood or believed prior to this. People you wouldn't expect to get it will get it.
Yeah.
They will get it.
God, you're lighting me up. You always light me up.
But I'm being blitzed with it, and now I'm saying I don't know if I should say this, but it is linked to this universal source of frequency. It's universal is the word they want me to use.
Yes. Wow. Yes. So I remember okay, it's taken me to this moment at the festival. Uh, so we had, with consciousness, with conscious intention, set everything up as best we could, 50-50 male, masculine, feminine, everything.
Yeah.
Uh, so there was a point, because I was on go the entire time. It was like I was literally,
Yeah.
Morgan told me later that she sent the bulk of her energy to me. It felt like something. I didn't know that till later, but I just felt different. I felt like I was much bigger than me. It's and anyway, so there was this point, and there was never any dissension. There wasn't any acting out. There was no leader. It was very, very much like a slice of heaven. But there was a point, and somebody had dropped an energy bomb, a little mild one, and it was one of those where I don't resonate with that person over there. Who do they think they are? And I just happened to be talking. And I don't know if I picked this up in the ethers or how it happened, but I remember being shown and being basically guided to say, what you have here is a representation that's not uniform, that represents all different. And so basically the short version of it was, they were telling me, which is what I expressed, was the more points of context that you have, the greater potential of the new birth and the new energy. And that really, what you just said, that's the first time I've remembered that since it happened. But that was the same energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
All inclusive.
All inclusive, because we have to reach the consciousness of humanity, not just certain aspects of that, which is, in a way, what we've done is separate things out into this is this is this, and this is this, when in fact we need to be all inclusive so that we can reach the collective.
Yeah. Which follows suit with our own personal expansion, because you can only expand by integrating more polarities, and eventually we're going to run out, you know what I mean? I mean, it's all or nothing.
Yeah.
You look fantastic.
Oh.
Are you on I mean, you look fantastic. You're just like glowing. And that was another thing that happened there too. The first day I got there, before anyone came, like a caravan pulled up and a lady got out. And I walked up to her to let her in the gate, and she looked at me and I looked at her, and I just started crying. It was that soul recognition thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, that was enough in itself, but then it happened 10 minutes later with the second lady that pulled up in a caravan. And I estimate 40, 50 women I didn't know. I didn't know their names. I'd never met them. They all had the same soul. Yeah. They all had the same continents. They all had the same disposition. And it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. I firmly believe that we did a lot of things there, but I think the main thing we did, and that's what was happening when those Blackhawks came, was the divine feminine, the mother goddess energy was being anchored in that moment. Like the balance was being brought in, because we know that's where it was deficient. And it was just amazing. And I saw plenty of evidence of it. Just both. It was like a dimensional experience.
Yeah.
So the information or the code that was coming in wasn't just a physical thing at all. Yeah. Wow. So they had to be happening. Things like that had to be happening all over the place, I would think.
Yeah.
In one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I'm hearing is more and more of those discussing. What's interesting is they're multidimensional cells being in other timelines, parallel universes, other dimensions, and being aware of that. And particularly some of the new ones coming in have tapped into, they've come from some other timeline in the future and have come back. And I actually spoke to a young lady who identifies with being a hybrid, and explained that her other self came from the future in a different timeline, a different species. And her biggest issue is going back in time to a more primitive Earth, which is today for her. She said, I had some kudos over there, you know, and now I'm just this, you know, ordinary sort of young adult with, and I'm thinking I want to go back to where I was in that future timeline where I actually had, you know, some status and whatever.
Wow.
And her difficulty is living now with those limits that she didn't have prior to this. So what I'm seeing is this multidimensional recall is actually, for some, causing issues because of what they understand from their other life. But this is a future life, not a past one.
Right, right. That makes sense. That feels right. So these people that have been contacting you, wanting to know, how do I navigate this now that the rules have changed? Are these people that were already woke, you know, or are these people that are just waking up, or both?
She's been aware of herself and her hybrid side for a long time. Very aware of the intelligences she's connected to, very aware of why she's come here. So it's more about integrating being human and the limits of being human. It's almost like, you know, you've gone back in time to medieval times and you've got to learn how to operate without bathrooms and, you know, hygiene, you know, and think, oh, you know, what on earth, how do I manage this, you know, when I come from a place where I manifest instantly, or, you know, or whatever. So that's the challenge, is this being in this environment, this matrix of being human, and realizing you've come for a purpose. You've come with that awareness to deal with what's happening now. So, and it's okay. So how can, and I'm looking at my work, is how do I support someone who is trying to manage this human existence, and with the challenge of it being very primitive and very limited in consciousness and awareness.
Yeah. And it moves so slow, you know. I mean, I think a lot of us have had to establish a higher level of patience. You know, and for me, it's been a gradual, like everybody, but I've, you know, really felt like I had it licked the last couple of years. And I think I have, but what, after this activation, integration that you were talking, you know, when I got back here, and again, I think I'm paralleling everybody. As the individual goes, so goes the collective, at least in terms of what's accessible. And I just forgot what I was saying because I haven't slept, but I can't remember what it was. Oh, it was the patience thing. So I started to feel, or in these conversations I'm having, I said to him, you know, I'm a bit bored. Now I realize Morgan's on the other side of the world. I'm good with that. We're plugged in, but I'm a little bit, you know, and I heard a lot. You need to just shut up and just integrate. You don't need to think about anything because it's all happening. But I picked that up from a few other people, and kind of like a mood of, I don't know, I was talking to Franco about this in the last show. It's almost like the energy that is produced when we all get to a certain level, like it is right now, and say, you know what, I get it. This is getting a little bit old. Let's get this party going, kind of thing. And that feels how I feel. But I do feel like the party's starting, like the party's going now, like it's moving. And I wanted to ask you too about the distortion, right? I mean, I've obviously, since I've been integrated, I'm watching some TV, and I'm not political at all. And I see, of course, the president who can't complete two sentences together, and this is go on several videos every day, and I'm thinking, not to pick on him at all. This is just a representation of the distortion. I mean, I can remember talking to you 2 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, And we talked about the distortion and how it's just like, it's not, but now it's literally like a cartoon. Like it's such a joke. I'm watching the stuff in Australia with the lockdowns and stuff, and these features that they're having come out very recently. And it's weird because you're seeing like totally opposite on the mainstream media. You'll see something pro this and then against, and it's weird. Not to mention some of the stuff just seems to be falling on deaf ears. And I think Australia is going to be pivotal in the turnaround because they've been pretty compliant. But I think, you know, you would just think at some point people are going to raise their arms in the air and just say, I've had enough. You know, if I have to exit, then I'll exit, but I'm not giving up any more of my sovereignty. I'm not going to be in the Stockholm syndrome thing. What are you seeing?
I think you're right. The Aussies generally are pretty laid back and they'll put up with a certain amount, but they have never been good with authority. There's a psyche within Australia that when authority gets too ridiculous, they will say enough is enough. And I think we're getting to that point, particularly because of the comedians we call government.
I know.
You know, and the mixed messages and the lack of logic. All of these things is, you know, we may be laid back, but we're not stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just this point, and already there's a real sense we're not going to be putting up with this much more.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, they're doing us a favor, because the more illogical they become, the more we're saying, you know what, this isn't making any sense anymore. So it's crazy. It is.
Yeah, it isn't making any. So I watched, I think it was about 3 nights ago, and it was, excuse me, it was the premiere from South Australia. It was the most hokey. It was the hokiest, whatever you call it, press conference I've ever seen. The person looked like they were performing on a local theater stage and had all this makeup on. Then they had all the reporters over here, and only the guy from Sky News was asking questions. So it looked very staged. I thought, well, that's weird. Okay, I'm not going to be like 100%, you know, believe everything they say, because there's something weird there. But the content was ludicrous. They were talking about, I think they had 2 cases, and they were talking about all these measures, and they were just shooting them down, and they kept avoiding it. But the point is, the next night, I see the prime minister talking about a 4-step phase out of the COVID restrictions. It's like night and day. They're diametrically opposed agendas. So that's strange. You know, that's strange. I saw a meme the other day, and it said, what did it say? It said, if you are trying to control, God, I can't get it, but in other words, if you're trying to control, that's not freeing. And if you notice those, as there's, okay, if you try to control, you have no control at all. And then it said, if you see a government or whatever the entity is starting to try to control more, that means it's becoming less controllable, and that's why they're doing it. And that's what it looks like to me.
Oh, the only news that's worth watching is Sky News, and there's a couple on there that are a bit on the money.
Yeah, there's a couple of good ones. There's a couple of good.
There's a couple of good ones there.
Yeah, I mean, there's I think he's a bald-headed guy, real feisty guy. He's good, but yeah. So I think that's going to be interesting. And the same thing's happening here. I mean, you got Texas and Florida, who have no cases. I mean, they're going down. They have no restrictions, no mask mandates. And then you got California that has just passed a mandate that if you're on California business and you work for the government, you can't fly into these 4 states because they're not complying, and you might catch COVID. So yeah. So have you got any feel on the galactic side? I mean, because I mean, like we just went through a month where everybody was. I was a bit amazed about that. But, you know, they were coming out with that CIA report, and
Yeah.
and I knew it was going to be bullshit, you know. And then it comes out, and I see people going, "Yeah, you see," and I'm like, "Whoa, wait a minute." I think that's like just this much of it, if it's even that much of it. But I mean, have you sensed any more of a presence or an involvement with our galactic brothers and sisters?
My feeling is that behind the scenes, there's been, if you like, a push from them to our governments to say, you better get your finger out,
Yeah,
because if you don't do it, we're going to do something. And they're pushing out the absolute minimum to think that they can get away with that. Oh, well, we've done it now. You know, that's as much as people need to know for this point. I suspect that we're going to see a lot more of the sightings, a lot more physical interactions in the near future, because I don't think our galactic brothers and sisters are going to like the fact that we're still not really informed. And the other thing is, and I've always said this, that disclosure is going to come from the ground up, that it's going to be more and more people owning their
yeah,
experiences,
yeah,
owning their truth. And
mm,
that is where there's going to be this movement where that it's going to shift. And you know, you've got books like Alan's latest book, and so many are coming out writing their stories now and what have you. It is becoming more and more of the norm.
yeah,
And you know, I'm fascinated that my book Awakenings in Japanese now, and it's, you know, it's apparently selling in Japanese, so they're very, very open.
yeah,
So I suspect that this is going to be the tipping point.
yeah, yeah. That feels right too. I was doing some research last night, and so you know, I'll jump on different platforms and see what they're doing, see what they're talking about, and just get a feel for the energy. But last night I went a little bit deeper, and I started searching, for example, light language, and I found boatloads. I mean, I would bet you I crossed several hundred,
Yeah,
and I noticed that they were typically from a week to a year old,
yeah,
and they had anywhere from say 100 views and subscribers to several hundred. But what struck me, or what I was shown or understood, was look how many there are.
yeah,
And so in that moment, I got this download, and they were saying, look, stop worrying about Soulogy. Stop worrying about you're not doing enough.
yeah,
You just saw that you guys have already done it.
yeah,
Like what you do now, that's gravy, but you've actually already done it. You can't stop it now.
yeah,
Because if you go back 10 years ago, I didn't even know what light language was until 5.5 years ago. You know, I mean, and now, so the understanding was it's embodied, and it's taken form,
mm,
and it's so far out there. Now that's just one example, but it's so far out there. And to your point, people are going to start stepping into what we were told was our imagination and all these things that we talk about on this show.
oh, 20 years ago when I came across light language, the artwork, all of these expressions of contact, I was really considered, you know, one of those really, particularly in ufology, which is very nuts and bolts kind of way of looking at things. Where's the tangible evidence? And this is weird stuff. This is intuitive stuff. This is psychic stuff. And it's all very, you know, weird and wonderful. Now, the numbers of healers, the numbers of those with contact, whether, and I'm talking about medical doctors, I'm talking about physicists, I'm talking about lawyers, I'm talking about social workers and farmers coming out with light language and saying, you know, this feels very weird, but it feels right. I mean, it's everywhere. It's just that people are still a little bit hesitant to actually go there and say, well, I've been doing these symbols since I was a kid. I'm doing this strange writing since I was a kid. I thought it was just weird stuff or it didn't mean anything. So I think it's about giving it veracity, giving it tangibility, and for others to know it's not just them, that this is a global example of our connection to our galactic brothers and sisters out there, and that we're part of that. And this is what now is being more and more embraced. And it's like everything. Once one person feels they're okay, that frequency goes elsewhere. Because I've often said to people when they say, well, I haven't met anyone like me. And my answer to that is, have you accepted it within yourself yet? Well, not quite. Right. As soon as you do, you'll find every other person out there is having similar things. I said, it's your frequency. As soon as you've integrated it, that's the frequency. Then you will find them in the supermarket. You'll find them at the dentist. You'll find them walking down the street. As soon as you accept it within yourself. And that's the big one.
Therein lies the rub. It's not the fear, all these fears. It's, if there is a fear, it's the fear of our own power, our own possibilities. Exactly. And that, that's why this whole thing with these 2 episodes with Morgan, I just went, okay, hang on a second. It's game's on. Like, there's nothing keeping me from trying to, to build that old muscle memory of being able to teleport or whatever else it may be. Yeah. And I just like April, well, really May and June, the number of times I woke up and said to myself, my third eye exploded again. And I would have physical evidence of it a lot of times. But the level of telepathy, like we talked about this, we've talked about this with you, with many other people over the years. And it was fast at that time, but this is like warp speed. This is like, like full blown. Anything's possible, which makes it very interesting when you look at what's futilely being thrown out there, because it's not really sticking. It's just not sticking. So I don't know, but I'm excited about it. I really am. So, yeah. And I think a lot of people that I've run into and comments on the show in the last 3 weeks have been talking about how they can't eat. They're not all of them, but many of them are not sleeping, or they're, it's not a cyclical thing. It just comes and goes. If you need to sleep, you're going to be awake. It just doesn't matter what time it is. So there's these things that are starting to make an impression on our old normal. Yeah. It's a bit challenging.
But, this is all part of what we came here to do.
Yeah.
When people say to me, but it's really hard now and it's really this, that, and the other, I said, look, don't you think on a level that this was what it was going to be like? You knew it was going to be a challenge, but you also knew it was going to be worth it. Or you wouldn't bother to incarnate in the first place. So basically, get over it. Get on with the job.
Yeah, I got one of those from a sister. I think it was the day after the Soulogy Fest, and I was gone, or 2 days after. And I just had that, when you don't have any serotonin and you haven't slept and you just went through this huge activation, and I was just in tears, and she's a close friend. She was part of the committee, and we had to talk some financial stuff. She was handling the financial stuff, and I just started bawling. I had her on the Zoom, and I just started bawling, and I said, and Morgan's in Australia, and and I said negative this, and I don't usually do that. And she said, do you know what you're doing? Do you know what you two are doing together? Do you know what you're doing? You know what you just did? No, straighten up. I was like, all right, I won't try that one. Forget victim consciousness. That don't apply anymore.
I always laugh and say I feel like I'm a headmistress at a boarding school that nobody wants to attend, and they want to go home. And I'm saying, I'm sorry, you've come here because you want to learn stuff. I said, you'll go home when you're done. And it feels like that, the headmistress saying, now sort yourself out. You're here for another few weeks or how many ever years it is, and then you can go home.
Well, it is a put up or shut up. And the ultimate victim consciousness is, what am I doing here? I mean, that's, and even if I say, get me out of here, that's the same thing, really. I mean, I know we have that choice, but I don't want to go anywhere. I feel like there's an opportunity to live a few hundred years. I mean, and even from a couple of sources that I have a lot of, I mean, someone that I would consider on your stature from my perspective, telling me that they pretty much know they're going to be here for 40, 50 years. And so I feel like there's going to be a really sharp turn. We're going to turn a corner at some point. I don't know what that looks like, because everything's changing so rapidly. Like when we got this download about her going to Australia, on the surface, well, the only problem that there was the humans accepting it, right? I mean, like you said about the alignment thing. So all the rest of it, we're in line. They're just waiting on us. So we're like, okay. And of course, you don't get a lot of information. You get enough. But as soon as you make the choice, it seems like it all just comes flooding in, right? You got to take that step in order to do it. But if you look at it, we're not defined, two people are together and they're married or whatever. Does it say anywhere in 5D that we have to live in the same house, in the same bed, or you know what I mean? All these things that are just considered normal, they're not. They're programs.
Yeah.
Exciting times. So you doing good? You look
I'm
great.
doing good. Yeah. Too busy, if anything.
Yeah.
A lot of the media are wanting to know thoughts on the UFO side of things, and they ask the same old questions.
Yeah.
But at least they're interested, and it's generating a certain amount of public interest. But it has to move a bit faster than that, as far as I'm concerned. But
I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you on that. We got David Icke's coming back on, I think August the 3rd. And I'm excited to talk to him, like I am with you, because of the way things are changing, to see what someone like you has to say. And what I like about your message is it's pretty much that schoolmarm kind of thing. I mean, there's really no in between here. Either, aye, sir, 2 bags full, let's get to work. Or we're distracting ourselves. And that's another thing that seems to be really big right now, is some people call them addictions, distractions. I'm noticing it being here, because I'm really I've assimilated more now than before the festival, because she was only gone like 10 days. So I was preparing stuff. So when I got back, I really landed in my own, and the human really was there. And then, those moments where you're like going, where's everybody? And, but what I was getting through my normal, just in silence, in stillness, just around the house working, I started to notice, like, this dropped away. Now that moment comes, and I'm not even thinking about it. And I get up to go eat something, right? And I'm like, wait, why am I going to go eat something? Because I don't have this habit anymore. So I could see all the different distractions, but it was being shown in a way, no judgment, just think about what you're doing. Why are you doing that? And the answer was the same for all of them. So whether you're stuck on the phone for 5 hours because you can't get off, or whatever it is, it's the same thing. It's keeping us from ourselves, and not in a bad way, because I think we're getting it. But I feel too, I don't know what your thoughts are. It's so hard to like pick a number, but God, I think there's a lot more people awake than we think.
I think so.
Do you feel like the timeline's accelerated this year?
Well, given the numbers of people that are contacting me says it all, because, you know, I was asked that by one media outlet, you know, how many people get in touch with you, you know, how many do you think are having these experiences and what have you? I said, well, I'm getting every day new emails from people all over the globe, and it can be as far away as Ecuador or Poland or, you know, Africa, China. I mean, you know, this is a global thing that's happening. How is it that every single day I'm getting new people contacting me with this experience? I mean, it's, you know, this wouldn't have happened 20 years ago. I might get a few a week of new people. I'm getting it every single day now. So I see the acceleration, and I see the numbers now that are understanding this is multi-complex in terms of how people experience it. It's not, oh, I saw a UFO necessarily. I've always, they will more likely say, I've always felt different, never felt I belonged, almost like I've been adopted. People don't understand me, you know. I've always felt as though I'd come here with a mission or a purpose for something, but I want to know what it is. You know, that's the big one. What is my mission? How do I find out what I've come here to do? And although I will help them explore that if they contact me, one of my favorite sayings is, do you think your soul is going to let you miss the bus? I doubt it. Because it's got it, you know, it's worked too hard to get you to this point. It's not going to say, oh dear, you forgot at the last minute. No, it isn't.
Well, yeah. And yeah, I mean, it's becoming an environment now, as victim consciousness and disempowerment is fading. The answer is, yeah, just dial up whatever you want. I mean, you know, really, I mean, if you want something, especially with this energy now, the way things manifest and present themselves, it can't be denied. I mean, you're seeing it everywhere.
Yeah.
So now, are these media outlets, are they mainstream media? Are they alternate news media?
Oh, some of them are mainstream.
So they're asking you, well, you'd have to be supplying the information. So you're talking to them about what you talked about at the first part of this show. You're talking about, well, what you just said, that people are having this multi-complex experience. It's not just a UFO sighting or a visitation. It's all this stuff affecting all of their streams of you know, being alive, basically. All the senses, everything. The way the brain works, the way relationships work, the way communication works. You know, there's a lot of people talking about, I'm becoming more direct. You know, a lot of people standing up for themselves, which is a good sign too. Yeah. So that's cool. So then it's possible that your information, Mary Rodwell, your information you've been putting out will be finding a space in some of the mainstream publications. Or are they not printing what you're telling them?
Oh, they still keep it pretty simple.
Yeah.
I call it the ABC of the UFO phenomenon. What kinds of craft do people see? You know, this kind of thing. It's all pretty basic. There's never a lot of time to go into detail. I got pretty pissed off with one astrophysicist that was part of that one radio interview, because he went into the standard, oh, well, some people mistake Venus for a spaceship and some people mistake. And I was really, it really winds me up when you get these so-called experts that know nothing about ufology, that are quite keen to say that it's generally people who have got no idea what they're seeing in the sky. So my response when I finally got a chance to answer that was saying, I met the pilots and the radio guy, Kevin Day, in the Nimitz. And I said, and they're experts because they're Navy personnel. They know what they're seeing. And I can tell you right now that they knew they were seeing something that wasn't produced on planet Earth, that these were doing things that no conventional craft would do. And they know that it isn't the Chinese and the Russians and whatever. It's just that you've got this whole thing from media that, oh, we've got to have the balance. We've got to have somebody saying this and somebody saying this. And all that really does is piss me off. And I find myself getting extremely Aries, let's put it like that. And I find I get less and less tolerant with that kind of nonsense. It's patronizing the public. And
well,
that's
of course,
what they do.
I mean, even if you look at the way they put out the 100, supposedly the only 144 sightings that they have ever had, and 143 were unknown, one was known. And then all the verbiage that they had, which was basically, I mean, again, I go back to the videos I was watching of the president. I mean, it's not about the person. It's almost like that we were getting to a point where you've insulted our intelligence for too long.
Yeah.
It's just not gonna stand. Do you, I mean, in your opinion, if we saw ships land a week from now,
Yeah.
would you think it would be more likely to be legit or staged? Because obviously it could be either, but I'm wondering what your thoughts are.
Well, if craft land, they can't stage unless it's a hologram. They can't stage beings. One of the things we do know is that those that are having experiences know full well the difference between what is human and what is ET by their energy signature. So it would be, what does this, it's in the same way that I talk to experiencers as seeing beings, and they want to know, well, is this good? Is this good? Or are they, are they benevolent, or are they self-serving? What, because they hear all this other stuff from other people. And I say to them this: when you see that being, what are you feeling from that being? Not what do they look like, because they can hear whatever they want to. They can be like angels, but not necessarily be loving. Don't go on the look, go on the feeling and the resonance to that you're seeing, because that is where the integrity is. So if it's feeling positive and loving, it most likely is. Yeah. And if it's feeling you've got anxiety about it in any way, then there's something in you that's picking up there's a problem here. Yeah.
Well, we could probably figure it out too by the way the media reports or doesn't report it. Wasn't that amazing though? I think this is what's coming to Australia, but even in a bigger way. I think it'll be more of a groundswell in England, where they had, what is it, 2 million people last weekend in Hyde Park.
Yeah. And
then a few weeks before that, when they announced the new mandates, everybody just went about their business the next day. Nobody paid attention. I mean, that's just I mean, could you imagine if that was put in print in a mass scale, how quick the consciousness would grow? And maybe that's what you were talking about in terms of the bigger bandwidth, the bigger bandwidth being something that isn't a typical, necessarily totally typical physical apparatus like a newspaper or internet website or one of the mainstream media outlets. Wow. Yeah. Very cool. It's always good to see you. I don't know, do you have anything coming up? Anything you want to tell us about?
I'm doing a conference on hybrids in about 3 weeks' time.
Really?
Hopefully will go down well.
Wow.
And there's another one at the beginning of August to do with the whole disclosure. So I'll send you the information.
Yeah, I'd love it. Is the hybrid one going to be online?
Yes, it is.
God, that's an interesting one. I've never heard of a conference where they were going to just talk about hybrids. That's such a that's such a fascinating topic, because it involves the physical and the non-physical, right? Because there's a lot of people that can say, I've got this, and I've got Syrian, and I've got Pleiadian, but it's another thing because I've met people that straight look you straight in the eye and say, I'm a reptilian.
Yeah.
Or I'm a reptilian hybrid, or even someone like Simon Parks, you know.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
that
yeah.
ought to be really interesting.
Yeah.
Are
And,
there
and
a-
the interesting thing,
Yeah.
a couple of them that have had DNA testing, and one of them said that they couldn't quantify at least 4 to 5% of her DNA. And another one wasn't able to get anything back because the doctor was very nervous and couldn't explain why they were nervous about her result and wouldn't tell her why they were nervous. Really interesting.
Well, I got a friend, and it's the same thing with them, and he's literally shouldn't be walking. I mean, you could go down the list, the amount of blood,
Yeah.
the failing of the organs,
Yeah.
and has been told you shouldn't be here. We don't have an
Yeah.
answer, you know.
Yeah.
So, how many of those are there?
Exactly.
I mean, that's like, I mean, it's almost like a powder keg, and they're trying to, you know, they're trying to keep the lid on it, and you know, based on the greater distortion, you know, the stuff they're putting out, it's probably going to blow pretty soon.
Well, my sense is, and certainly I know I'm not the only one that believes this, that I think the PCR testing is more about DNA collection than it is about whether or not you have this virus.
I wouldn't doubt that a bit. And these DNA things that blew up too, where you can just send your stuff in, and yeah, I mean, that's just,
Oh,
yeah, I really feel like
want to
there.
know
What's
they
that
want to
again?
know how many of us they want to know how many of us are not the same.
Well, it's not going to take many. That's all I can say. It's not going to take many, and there seems to be I mean, it's just well, you know, somebody came on earlier this year, and their channel was more people had woken in 2020 than the previous 10 years combined. And I got to believe this year's blown 2020 away, and we're only halfway through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much always for coming on and always being so open with us. And you're a big part of our energy, and I hope you know that. So we love having you on, and I get the messages and the comments and the emails. I mean, people adore you, and you know, you're just an OG, like I told you. You've been doing this a long time, and watching you on that one show, I don't know what it was. I wish I knew what it was, but it was a UFO related show, I think. And what struck me about it, and this is why we love you, because the most of the other speakers, if not all of them, were very much into the sensational aspect was being pulled out, you know, whether they were intending to or not. That's just the way it was. Your stuff was very, very much like it is on these shows. It was very constructive. It was very matter of fact. And I really enjoyed that chapter in Alan's book as well. I thought that was excellent. I mean, you did a great job with it. So thank you so much, Mary. And I hope to do this again and again, like I've always said. And best to you always. Morgan's about, I think, 2 hours from you. I hope you guys get to hook up.
Okay.
She should be there a while. You take care.
Lots of love.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see y'all later.